Hi, everyone, and welcome to Val Talks Pets, the forum for pet parents and enthusiasts alike. Having been in the pet industry for almost 10 years now, I am going to share with you issues and questions that arise as I work with pet parents on a day-to-day basis. I am not a veterinarian, but I do have certifications in canine, feline, small animal, fish and reptile, and avian health and nutrition from the University of California, Davis Extension. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Val Talks Pets. Well, in continuation of my exploration into service dogs, I am very happy to welcome to the show Danielle Forbes, Executive Director and Co-founder of National Service Dogs. Danielle, thank you so much and welcome to Val Talks Pets.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be part of the required listening. It's been great hearing the past two episodes on service dogs. It's all really fabulous information because there's a lot of myths out there around the industry or misunderstandings, and I appreciate you taking the time to address all of that and helping to share really good information.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for that, because it's a bit of a minefield, I have to admit, when I started looking a little bit more in depth into this. So we're going to go into that minefield for sure. But I thought what we would do is you did co-found National Service Dogs. And because I'm exploring this whole thing with therapy dogs and emotional support animals, and as you said, and I did have a great conversation with Stephanie Ridley on last episode about her son's autism response dog, Beaumont, who is a national service dog. And I thought she really was very helpful in explaining how the incredible difference it's made in the life of her son and their entire family. So now I get to ask you all these like really nitty-gritty questions. So I think the first thing I'd like to know, if you could share, is how did you actually decide or have a germ of this idea to create a service dog organization that went from that into this very incredibly successful organization that you have now with National Service Dogs?
Well, we actually are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year.
Yay!
So a major milestone for us, but reflecting right back to 1996 when it all started, the reality is myself and my fellow co-founders, we were all working for another guide dog program in Oakville.
Oh, okay.
And I was training dogs for the deaf and hard of hearing.
Oh.
And we were out in the community and heard about somebody who was looking for an autism service dog for their 3-year-old child and had been calling all over North America looking for an organization that did dogs for children with autism and couldn't find anything. And she just happened to get my fellow co-founder on the phone one day asking if this particular agency did autism dogs. And she said, no, but we might know somebody who can help you out. And reached out through the other co-founder and called and said, what exactly do you need this dog to do? What are you looking for? What's autism? And the three of us sat down and went, well, is that even possible? What are we going to do? We were just, to be honest with you, we were going to do it as a one-off just for an extra few dollars. So just as a private training situation, we never thought about that we were going to start an organization. We were just going to help out one family and train a dog for them privately.
Wow.
And while we were in the process of finding the right dog for that 3-year-old, the family invited us to go to the Geneva Center for Autism conference in the fall of 1996.
Ooh.
And we set up a table and just started talking to people, and everybody's like, oh, we want a dog. That's an awesome idea. We'll take a dog. We had 30 requests, and we quit our jobs at the other program and started National Service Dogs.
Wow. And so you focused primarily then right on autism?
When we first started NSD back in 1996, we were kind of jacks of all trades. We were doing hearing ear dogs because that was my background. Others in others in NSD had done seizure, physical disability, guide dogs for the blind. So we were trying to be all things to all people. But what we found out we joined Assistance Dogs International in 2000
Mm-hmm.
and went to our first Assistance Dogs International conference. And
Mm-hmm.
we found out then, while we were surrounded by the international community, nobody had ever heard of an autism dog before. So that's when we found out that what we were doing had never been done before anywhere in the world,
Really?
and that it was new. It was not initially overly well received. They're
Really?
like, that's not it. Well, they couldn't picture, because the definition of a service dog is a dog that's been trained to perform tasks to
Mm-hmm.
mitigate a disability,
Yeah.
right? So it is completely task oriented. And when you think of a dog that's working for somebody in a wheelchair, retrieving items, opening doors, a guide dog for the blind, um, doing curb work, making
Mm-hmm.
sure that people can cross the street safely. They are trained to find the door. So if somebody's on the street, the dog will take them to the door handle so that they, aren't feeling along the side of a building trying to find the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So there's tangible skills. And for the autism dogs, they it's people think a bit more in mental health realm than they did in the physical challenges realm, right?
Yeah, I can see
And when
that.
we told them that we were going to be tethering 3-year-olds to 75-pound Labradors, they really blew a gasket. So, um, yeah, so it was a bit of a journey
Mm-hmm.
but today, as we sit here, there are thousands of autism service dogs being deployed around the world using our service dog model.
Really? That is incredible.
hmm
Wow.
So in early 2000, once we found that out and we were overwhelmed, we were getting requests for dogs from Iceland,
Mm-hmm.
England, Australia, all over the US,
Mm-hmm.
and of course Canada. And we were just completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And one of our second or third team was featured on Dogs with Jobs.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like one of our very first teams, our early teams in the early days, was the opening episode of Dogs with Jobs on Life Network.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, as soon as that aired,
Uh-huh.
our phones literally
Oh,
blew up. And
I
it's
can
like,
imagine.
oh my God.
Yeah.
So I, at the time, was the president of the board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
And the organization from 1996 to 2000 functioned entirely as a volunteer entity. We
Okay.
all volunteered and worked full time while we did it on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in a position by 2000, we hired a trainer and a volunteer coordinator part-time, thanks to the Trillium Foundation,
Oh
actually.
yeah, yeah. That's the through
And
Ontario. Yep.
yeah, and then from there we just built our staff up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we made the decision organizationally to focus 100% on autism in the early 2000s because that's where nobody else was doing it. Like
Mm-hmm.
there was nobody else doing it, and we didn't see the value in continuing to do other types of service dogs that were being very well done by other programs with more resources than we had at the time.
Yeah. I could see that.
So we became autism only from the early 2000s until 2010, when we had evolved to a point where we were producing enough dogs to meet the program needs. Wait times at that time were more like 2 years, not 4.
Mm-hmm.
But we were releasing dogs that weren't a good fit for autism because, as it probably came out in the last podcast, is if you're going to tether a 75-pound Labrador to a child, that dog better be really stable.
Yeah. Yeah.
No chasing squirrels, no chasing balls, no dog distraction, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't take advantage of a child who's nonverbal and
Yeah.
can't verbally correct them or physically correct them in the moment to check them to make sure that they're not, most of us, if we're out with our dogs and they see a squirrel, we can be proactive and preemptive and go,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
good.
Yep.
And they focus back on us and we can walk past without the dogs breaking that heel position.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a whole lot of wiggle room for the dogs to get themselves in trouble if they take advantage
Mm-hmm.
of somebody on the end of the leash who can't give them those cues in the moment, right?
Right. Wow.
So we were releasing dogs to other programs to use as guide dogs and skills dogs and all that kind of stuff because they just weren't appropriate for autism, but they did very well with an adult handler
Mm.
who could give them the physical and verbal feedback they needed to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were looking like how to get a better return on our investment to talk business,
Mm-hmm.
and started researching other service dogs. And again, there's so many programs in Canada doing guide and hearing and physical disability and seizure disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, why compete when other organizations are doing it well?
Yeah.
And PTSD dogs were just coming to the fore in the US. Like, you were hearing a lot in
Mm-hmm.
the news about PTSD service dogs. And we spent a year researching it, what we
Oh.
would need, the type of dog,
Mm-hmm.
how would we service those clients, how would we deal with the mental health side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we spent a year educating ourselves on all things trauma, mental health, PTSD. And what we found was that the dogs that we need for PTSD are similar in terms of their skills as autism, because the dogs are responding to social isolation
Right.
and a lack of communication socially,
Yeah.
whether it's a nonverbal child with autism or a veteran who just doesn't want to talk to anybody and is
Right.
self-isolated, right?
Yeah.
Anxiety issues are the same for different reasons, but they present the same way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So all the good stuff we were teaching the autism dogs to do, like doing visits where they interrupt negative behaviors by putting the head in the child's lap or nudging,
Uh-huh.
or conditioning them to be comfortable laying across people's bodies to provide that deep pressure to
Right.
relieve anxiety.
Yeah.
All of that transferred over to PTSD. And then for the PTSD, there was physical skills like nightmare interruption. The dogs are trained to pull the blankets off the bed or to
Really?
actually get up on the bed and wake them up physically.
Oh my gosh.
Um, and a bunch of other stuff. But there was enough overlap in the training that it's like, well, that would be a really good fit. We just need to understand the people part of it.
Mm-hmm. And
The dog
adults.
part, it'll be, yeah, it's adults. And with our autism program, I mean, we train the parents, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the kids aren't responsible for the ongoing care
Mm-hmm.
and maintaining the training of the dog. That falls to the parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? With the autism program, the parents do all the heavy lifting to keep the team successful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we'd never addressed mental health. And so, yeah, that's how we got into PTSD. And we started the program in 2011. We placed our first dog, and we
Oh.
haven't looked back. We were the first Assistance Dogs International accredited program in Canada to
Wow.
take up doing PTSD service dogs. And the funny part is the feedback we got, as again, the conversations in the international community was like, well, what do psychiatric service dogs do? There's not a physical task.
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing? And if there's no task being trained and mitigating a disability, then is it really a service dog? So the
Oh.
exact same conversation we had 15 years earlier about autism dogs not fitting the mold of a quote unquote service dog
Right.
was happening within the community around psychiatric dogs and PTSD service dogs.
Interesting.
And so we're just like, well, we've done this. This is what you guys said to us about autism.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't listen to you and stop doing autism dogs, and we're just going to plow through with the PTSD as well. And one of the big learnings that came out of that is the people part of it,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that everybody we were dealing with, regardless of what program they were coming from, they're dealing with mental health issues that we as an organization have to be mindful of when we are trying to teach them, support
Right.
them,
Yes.
and interact with them on a regular basis. So certainly the last decade, we've become a more trauma aware organization as a whole as a result of all this.
Yeah.
And that has actually made our autism placements better,
Wow.
because we're not just focusing on the kids and the dog. We're
Mm-hmm.
looking at mom and dad and saying, how are you doing? How are you
Right.
coping with all this?
Yeah.
Do you have the capacity to deal with this stressor right now in your life? And how can we help you?
Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
we take a more holistic approach, where in our early days, we were laser focused, dog and child.
Yeah.
And the parents just followed along behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did what we told them to do.
Yeah.
But that's not the best way to do it, right? Because we have to meet them where they're at. And if they're in crisis,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the best time for us to, to be putting pressures on them, like, certification testing and giving them a new dog.
Right, yeah. Well, I thought that Steph
Right.
was really good about explaining that. That whole idea of the holistic approach, because
Hmm.
she saw it as a whole, as a family thing.
Yep.
It's changed everything for, yes, her son, but their family. And that's not the first time, I've heard this before. Same thing. Our family was drowning, and this
Yep.
dog saved us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but when we first started, that was not the focus,
Right,
because
yeah.
the parents were just like, you have to help our child.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And then over time, we learned very quickly that the child wasn't the only one benefiting from
Mm-hmm,
having the dog in their life,
yeah.
and that it's a ton of work.
Yeah.
It is a ton of work. It's extra work for the parents,
Mm-hmm.
and some parents get a year or two into the process and they're like, you know what? It's more work than the benefit I'm seeing.
Really?
Here's your dog back. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, yeah, it
Wow.
happens. Well,
Wow.
because sometimes, well, if people have never owned a dog,
Yeah.
um, autism is not static.
Mm.
If you're dealing with somebody with a visual impairment, they're blind for life
Mm-hmm,
for
mm-hmm.
the most part.
Yeah.
Autism is an evolving door, right? So if you give a dog to a 5-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with a very different child 10 years later, 8 years later, when you're giving them a replacement dog,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're dealing with a totally different situation, and it evolves over time. So, you get parents whose children got their dog when they were 4 or 5 years old because they were bolting and they needed the safety piece.
Yep.
And then the kids' behavior through the help of the dog is modified and other supports that they have in place, and they're not using it that way anymore. And then it's just work for something that they're not using. And we've had really, to be honest with you, we've had really great families that have looked at the situation and said, you know what, we're not using the dog. He's young enough to be redeployed to a child that's could benefit
Mm-hmm.
every single day.
Mm-hmm.
If we give him back, will you give him out to another family? And we've done that very successfully.
Wow. I wondered about
Yeah,
that actually because I was
yeah.
thinking like, do they outgrow their dogs? Which is kind of what you're saying. Some do.
Some
So,
do. Some do.
yeah. So yeah, they get, as you said, redeployed. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I wondered that. Because what happens if, things have changed and you've got all these amazing therapies going on and it really changes the dynamic of what's happening with the child, and especially as he grows
Yep.
or she grows
Yeah.
older, right? Yeah.
And for an older dog that's been out working for a family for 5 years, we
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't deploy a dog. But if the dog's under 4 years of age,
Mm.
is, only been out working for a year to 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and we're at a stage where we have families coming. I mean, we've got kids that are on their third dog and they're in their 20s now, right?
Really?
And yeah, they're the exception, not the
Okay.
rule. The bulk of the kids, if they got their dog super young, they'll go through one dog, sometimes two,
Mm-hmm.
and then the families just go with like a companion dog, and,
Oh, okay.
they don't need the service dog anymore. The majority of our families, once their service dogs retire, they keep them as companion dogs, so the kids still get that emotional and anxiety support at home. The dogs just don't go to school with them anymore or out to the mall and in jacket. They're just
I wondered that.
more emotional support animals.
Yeah, there. Yeah, exactly. I wondered that. What happens when they retire?
Hmm.
And if they get to stay with the family, but they're just not
Yes,
working anymore. Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for families who need another dog,
Mm-hmm. How does that work?
because so because we do ongoing follow-ups with the families and recertifications over the lifetime of the team.
Mm-hmm.
We get to have those conversations, right? So, we start talking to them when the dog's 8-ish. How are
Mm.
they doing? Are they able to keep up? If the child's going to school with the dog, how are they managing at school for 6 hours,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they've had the dog if the dog is like 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
the Labradors, I mean, they're getting up,
Yep. Getting
mid
up there.
50s, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're getting up there. And some dogs just don't like that level of energy by that time. So
Mm-hmm.
we assess each situation based on what we're seeing in the dog's health and their willingness to want to be in that environment if they're
Mm-hmm.
in school and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we start putting a retirement plan together,
Oh.
usually more than a year in advance of when it
Ah.
actually happens, if we can.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had situations where we've lost dogs unexpectedly.
Oh,
Um, and well, it's life, right?
yeah,
You
it
work
is.
with
Yeah.
enough, and in those cases, we do have a successor dog policy, and if you're getting a successor dog, you don't go back on the waiting list at the bottom.
I
You're
see.
at the top of the list, right?
Right.
And we do our you don't get the next dog necessarily, but we look for the best match for your family, and you'll get the next dog from the dogs coming down that are a good fit. It's not as cut and dry as just whoever's next gets
Yeah.
the next dog. But so there's a transitional process. But in a perfect world, um, the new dog would come in and just slowly ease the old dog out of jacket.
I see.
And there has to be a plan in place because sometimes the older dogs that are retiring have issues with separation anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
They're confused, right? You get the
Yeah.
jacket out and they're trying to put the jacket on, and the new dog, and the old dog's trying to get their head through. So no, no,
Oh,
take me, and
yeah.
it's so. But most of our families have other children
Mm-hmm.
in their lives that have spent the last 8 years not being able to interact with the service dog
Mm.
the way they would a pet dog.
Mm-hmm.
So the retired dog becomes a well-loved pet for the other family members, right?
Yeah.
So they get majorly spoiled.
Oh gosh. I mean that's
Yeah.
one thing do you actually remember what the first dog that went out for your autism?
Yeah, her name was Shady.
Shady?
Shady. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny because when we were looking for a dog for that family,
Mm-hmm.
um, we were just going through the newspapers looking to see who had Labrador puppies for sale and
Oh.
talking to breeders.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our team went out and met with this breeder, and had a look at these 7-8 week old puppies. And while they were there, the female dog was following them all through the house. Like, who are you? What are you doing? And at the end of talking to them and seeing all the puppies, and working with each of the puppies just to do like a temperamenty type test,
Yeah.
he's like, the puppies are lovely. What's the scoop with the mom? And they're like, you're interested in her? And he's like, yep.
Yep.
And they did. They sold us the mom.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's
she was 3 years old. We
really.
had to wait until her milk had all dried
Yep.
up to spay her,
Mm-hmm.
but she was the best dog. To this
Really.
day, she was
Oh.
one of the best dogs we ever had.
Oh.
Yeah,
So that's one of the
yeah,
things I think I wonder too is because you have your own programs in place for the dogs. So I guess
yeah.
did you somehow create like a breeding program your dogs, and like how
hmm
do you choose which ones go in, and like how do you do
Well,
that?
yeah, in the early days, so Shady came to us, like I just said, and then so we started NSD in the summer of '96,
Mm-hmm.
and after the Geneva Center conference, word got around to somebody somehow, but a breeder from Sault Ste. Marie, a golden retriever breeder, reached out to us
Mm-hmm.
and said that she would donate a female dog for breeding, as long as for the first two litters she got to pick the stud and got to keep her pick of half the litter, and we
Okay.
could keep the rest for on program.
Mm-hmm.
And Melody was the foundation of our breeding program,
Oh.
and she produced beautiful puppies. The last of her lines are 14 now,
Oh wow.
and she lived to be 15, so she was a good matriarch.
Yeah.
But she provided us with our very first litter of puppies in June of 1997,
Oh.
and then we added Tilly, was a yellow Labrador
Mm-hmm.
that we added to the mix. And so we had a breeding program, and we had clients before we had money, before we had a formal program. Yeah, we did it backwards. I
Yeah.
would not recommend anybody start a charity the way we did.
Oh well, live and learn, right?
Yeah, we came out okay
You
in the
sure
end, but
did.
it wasn't easy, I'll tell you that much.
Oh,
If I had a do-over, I'd do it a lot differently.
well, so how many, so you've got all your puppies coming in, and we'll talk about the puppy raisers, but, so what's the percentage of the puppies that are born into the program that actually end up going all the way through into full service?
Um, Well, it used to be about 65, 70%.
Mm-hmm.
We So going back to the breeding program, we did our own breedings and we worked with local breeders for the first probably decade.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we got our feet under us and had made some connections in the service dog world, we started sharing breedings and puppies with other service dog providers so that we were getting dogs that were being bred for purpose
Ah,
within our industry.
yeah.
Because the outside breeders we were working with were lovely and they produced great dogs, but they were drivey. They were dogs that people were taking and doing agility and field
Mm.
work with. So they
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of energy that needed to be contained.
Mm-hmm.
And we lost a lot of them because they didn't have the right temperament to
I
be
see.
autism dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been working exclusively within the service dog community now for about 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2018, we joined what's called the ABC Breeding Cooperative through Assistance Dogs International.
Okay.
And what that is there's 38 programs across North America, and they screen any female dogs we put into the system or stud dogs we put into the system. They screen them for hips, eyes, hearts, elbows,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they do genetic screening on them
Oh.
depending on their breed for a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of stuff.
Yep.
And if the dogs get selected into the breeding cooperative, then we all collectively produce the puppies and then we share them out amongst the 38 programs.
Oh.
So in 2019, COVID put a kibosh on that because we
Yeah.
can't get the dogs across the border.
Yeah.
But in 2019, we had 13 puppies come through that cooperative
Oh.
from other providers. So we had puppies coming through the breeding cooperative from Southeastern Guide Dogs in Florida, Susquehanna Service Dogs in Pennsylvania, a bunch from Pacific Assistance Dogs out west, was one of our founding partners from 25 years ago. They helped us get started
Oh, wow.
when we first started NSD. So yeah, we joke, we get boys in a box delivered to the office regularly because semen is shipped all over North America to breed our dogs. You never know what you're going to walk into in the kitchen at National Service Dogs when it's
Be
breeding
very
day.
careful. Yeah.
Yes.
So what would actually prohibit a dog from actually going into service? What would be something that he would not make it for?
Well, through this breeding cooperative, one of the things we've standardized is our assessment of the puppies. We do it's called a behavioral checklist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same checklist that all the member programs for the breeding cooperative use on all our dogs. So it allows us at 7 to 8 weeks, 6 months, 12 months, recall at 18 months, to do a standardized test for temperament, confidence, drive, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scored, and all of those dogs go into a centralized database so that it's kind of cool because you can look at a dog at 6 months, and if it's scoring at a certain level, its chances of success are within that percentile, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's super cool. But one of the things, I think the biggest challenge we have for dogs being released would be distraction.
Oh, yeah.
And health.
Yeah.
So on the health side of it, if there's any health issues, whether there's allergies or something more substantive like their hip and elbow screens don't come back solid,
Mm-hmm.
they would be released as pet dogs.
Oh, okay.
The temperament stuff, I'm trying to think because it was 2 years ago. We lost an entire litter. The dogs had really severe guarding behaviors.
Oh.
They were all of them were resource guarding.
Oh, interesting.
And we ended up releasing, I think, all but one of them.
Really?
For that behavior. So those dogs are no longer in the breeding program.
No, there you go. Yeah. So then do they just, so do you have like like sort of a list or database or something of people that that would want these dogs that are going out?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have a list of people looking to adopt a retired or released service dog candidate.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, most of the dogs don't make it to the list. I mean, we're not a huge program. At any given time, we have between 75 and 100 dogs in foster care.
Okay.
compared to the bigger programs, which is like 300.
Oh.
Um, and so most of the time, the puppy raisers or other associated volunteers
Mm-hmm.
who've gotten attached to the dog and loved it first
Yeah.
adopt it before it ever makes it to our public
Your
list of
candidate list. Yeah.
potential.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, we rely so heavily on our awesome volunteers, before
Mm-hmm.
COVID anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Our program, we had, the dogs were in the kennel Monday to Friday, but went home to volunteer weekend sitters every weekend. So they didn't have to be in the kennel
Oh, nice.
on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
We had a program in the evening where volunteers would come out and do a targeted enrichment program that was based on the ASPCA's enrichment program for dogs living in shelters.
Oh, okay.
And it's an actual designated program. I can send you the link to it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a read and relax program. You've probably seen stuff about it.
Yeah.
But we put together an enrichment program so the dogs would do, 30 minutes of read and relax in the kennel with the volunteers, a 30-minute free run at our leash-free park on the property,
Mm-hmm.
and 30 minutes of grooming and massage. And all of our dogs, the kids like to lay on them, clients, even with the PTSD, snuggle with them.
Mm-hmm.
Our facility dogs and therapy dogs all have to have good body sensitivity. They can't be overly sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So the volunteers would just do that stuff in the evening with them, lay on them, snuggle with them,
Oh.
groom them. And so a lot of volunteers touch them over the course of their 4 to 5 months with our advanced training team.
Mm-hmm.
So between the puppy raisers and that 150 volunteers that engaged in our programs, there's always somebody looking to take them.
Yeah. So then, so if someone wants to become a puppy raiser and they do that all like voluntarily, there's no money involved or anything. How do you choose who gets to be raising a puppy?
Yeah, so NSD does, we provide the puppy, the food, and the veterinary care, and the raisers are and the jacket, so the equipment. But the raisers are responsible for treats and toys and crates if they need them and all that stuff. But we've developed quite a screening process. So you apply, and you have to go through an orientation. As people are waiting for puppies, they're, again, pre-COVID, they're asked to come to class. We give them dogs to handle. I have our facility dog, Chartwell, here, and he would be used at class. So somebody who's looking to be a puppy raiser could handle him and put him through an obedience class and see if it's a good fit. We get to see how they handle a dog, what their timing's like. We do an in-home interview.
Okay.
So we double check the property's safe and make sure that everybody in the household is on board. We deal with a lot of students in rental housing. So we want to make sure there's rental roommate agreements and things like that to make sure they're not bringing in a dog to a household where there's people that don't want the dog there. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's a pretty thorough screening. And then if they're approved, they get a puppy, and then they're required to come to class every week.
Right. Yeah. So they have to be not too far from the facility.
Yeah, we've asked that people be within an hour's drive because, if they're any further than that, we've had volunteers over the years that have trucked in from Chatham and Toronto. But, come winter, it's really difficult. And because of the work we're doing through the breeding cooperative and all the standardized testing we're doing, we want the dogs to be, we want to know where the dogs are at in their development and making sure that we're seeing them regularly enough so that we can make sure that any issues are being dealt with quickly. And to be honest, the one thing COVID has really helped with is we've become very good at virtual training.
Oh, yeah?
Thank God for technology. I mean, as we sit here, you can get up on FaceTime or a virtual call and go out for a walk with the dog and in real time coach somebody as they're healing with the dog down the sidewalk, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
it really is.
Thankfully, because that's the only reason we were able to get dogs out the door in COVID, right?
Yeah.
Because We worked with other programs across Canada having the same challenges and
Mm-hmm.
have come up with a really good virtual learning situation.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that some of the teachable stuff, like the in-class stuff,
Mm-hmm.
is going to stay virtual. So
Oh.
all the theory pieces, all the learning theory, all the stuff that they're learning about healthcare and all that
Yep.
stuff. Normally we'd have chats at class. Well, when the puppy's with you and you're in class, if you've been to a dog obedience class, you don't have their full attention.
Yeah.
So the virtual classrooms have been very popular with our clients and our volunteers.
Yeah, just wow, that's amazing. So it just goes to show you that all these
Yeah.
things are going to reshape things now, and you'll be,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's. So one of the things I know you were talking about, and I think this gets down to some really good specifics because you were saying that all of your dogs are certified, and you've mentioned ADI, and
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned ADI in the last podcast, one before Steph's as well. So maybe we can talk about what you mean about certified for NSD dogs and what ADI does and how valuable that is to you, um, or being a part of it. Maybe you can explain that, and that will give us a little bit of information about what ADI does and your certification.
Sure. Well, Assistance Dogs International has been around, I think they're coming up on 35 years. They've been around for almost a decade when we
Oh,
got involved in 2000.
oh,
So they've been around for a bit. And so when we started, we were three service dog trainers
mm-hmm,
who'd never run a charity, kind of knew what we were doing, but in
mm-hmm,
practical purposes, not administratively, and certainly had never run a charity, started a charity, and done any of that.
mm-hmm,
And when we we were talking to the crew at a Pacific Assistance Dogs out in BC,
mm-hmm.
they had already become members of ADI and said, "You guys got to come and check it out." And we went to that first conference. It was in Las Vegas, actually, and it was like, oh, thank God, here's the roadmap.
Ah,
They had all the standards. They had
mm-hmm,
the best practices.
mm-hmm.
They had everything, and all you had to do is take all that information that had been pulled together and execute on it,
Excellent.
right?
Yeah.
And make it your own.
Mm-hmm,
So for us, I always refer to ADI as that roadmap
mm-hmm.
to now, like I said, they didn't necessarily understand at the time what we were doing with our autism program, but in terms of everything else, I mean, that was really a turning point for us organizationally to go, okay, here's our vision. Now we have it clear in our head where we need to go. So ADI sets the standards not only for the dog training pieces, because that's where we all like to live as dog trainers,
Mm-hmm.
but what was great for us is they have a whole set of standards on client care,
Oh.
how you interact with your client, how often, how
Oh.
much training they get, what your follow-up looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But it also had a handler's standard. So if I'm going to be a service dog or a guide dog handler,
Mm-hmm.
what's my responsibility to the community? What's my responsibility to the agency that gave me the dog
Oh.
and to the service dog community at large? So there's a whole piece, even our clients have to understand that they have to meet those 80 Assistance Dogs International standards for handlers.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're out in public, your dog does not get to serve burgers off the restaurant table. The dog is unobtrusive under the table, tucked in so people aren't tripping over it. It's well groomed, it doesn't smell, and it doesn't vocalize inappropriately.
Right.
Right? That's your responsibility as a handler to make sure that that dog lives up to the training we provided it in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very holistic. They even have a whole section on governance, right? So what's the board responsibility? What's your risk management plan? What's your succession plan? What happens if the charity becomes all the stuff that's in the Constitution for your bylaws, but practically what happens to your organization if something happens to your leadership team? Where do your
Mm-hmm.
dogs go in an emergency? Like they forced us
Yeah.
to think about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not just a one and done. So you do all that hard work And at the time that we joined, they didn't have an accreditation process.
Mm-hmm.
The standards and accreditation process was actually in development.
Oh.
And I sat on the standard committee for years and years and helped them develop that.
Mm-hmm.
And another member of our team was on the accreditation committee and helped them develop the accreditation process.
Mm-hmm.
So they launched the accreditation package to members in, I think, 2005. It was finally done, and agencies could put their names forward for accreditation under ADI.
Mm-hmm.
But it took them years to get through everybody. I think they didn't get around to us until 2008.
Really?
Just, well, it was backlogged, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They only had a handful of assessors going out all over the world
Wow.
to do all the accreditations of the programs, right?
Yeah.
Learning as you go.
Mm-hmm.
So we were, our agency was part of the developmental team that brought all that good stuff forward and built on where ADI was at when we joined.
Amazing.
And that work still continues. I still sit on the standards committee.
Oh.
I sit on the legislative committee. And, you know, we were involved. I love the stuff that you put out there for the Department of Transportation.
Yeah.
Because our committee provided the feedback loop for ADI to give to the Department of Transportation. Yeah. So I went through your podcast on all that, and I'm like, that's our work, and our committee did all that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it goes around and comes around. But it's really just, the agency is based on just best practice,
Mm-hmm.
and it evolves, and really good programs. So little programs like National Service Dogs got to benefit from multi-million-dollar programs all over the world that had the resources to do new things and then share it out into the world, right?
Mm-hmm. So then how does that work with the fact that your dogs are, as you say, certified? What does that mean? And does that come from ADI?
So the ADI doesn't test the individual teams.
Okay.
What ADI does, so as members, accredited members in good standing, we undergo, they do, there's an annual compliance report that has to be filed every year.
Mm-hmm.
And then every 5 years, they do an on-site audit where they come through and randomly pull your files to make sure that you are living the standards, not just saying you are.
Right.
Last time they were out was in 2018 is when we were last accredited.
Mm-hmm.
And she was on site for 2.5 days.
Really?
And they interview your clients to make sure your follow-up is right. They go and shadow your puppy classes, your trainers. So it is a fulsome audit of what you're doing to make sure it aligns with the standards that you're ascribing to, so that they know that when we say this dog qualifies as a service dog under the ADI standards, that dog qualifies under the standards. So it is, the certification is coming from us following the ADI standards.
I see.
So
Gotcha.
ADI doesn't qualify those dogs themselves.
No,
the agencies qualify them, and then they qualify the agency.
I love that.
And double checks that they're doing what they say they're doing.
Yeah, I just love that, to have an organization that really does keep those standards and follows through with them and impresses them. I love that, because it really makes a difference. I think, and I was mentioning that you know, maybe if you're looking, you need to look for a dog that's ADI attached to ADI, because I don't want to put you on the spot here too much, but you know, as I was talking about, the legislation is very murky, and we know that there's a very weird gray area with the emotional support dogs and the service dogs. And they are allowing people to do this idea of self-training service dogs. How does that fit? And, you know, what do you think about that? I know it's a bit tricky.
It's a big topic. And I mean, so at the core of it is, in Canada, as we sit here, there are 9 Assistance Dogs International or International Guide Dog Federation accredited programs. We all have 3-year plus wait lists.
Oh my God.
We cannot meet the needs of the community.
Okay.
So how can we tell the community, hey, you just have to suck it up and wait?
Wait, yeah.
If they can come up with a viable option that produces a dog that is safe in public, meets their needs, and there are some out there.
Mm-hmm.
In my 25 years, I've met people who have trained their own dogs very successfully.
Oh, good.
I have had others, seen others, and talked to others, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
and and it's frustrating. And
Mm-hmm.
we get calls regularly from people wanting to know um, how so we get two types of calls. We get people wanting us to certify their dog for them so that they can get access. There's 3 provinces in Canada where the government regulates the service dogs, and
Mm.
they have a Service Dog Act.
Awesome.
Alberta, BC, and Nova Scotia issues access cards. So the government has a process where you have to have your dog qualified by an accredited program, or you have to run through a third-party certification test to
Awesome.
qualify. Yeah, it is. It's
I
super
like
awesome.
that.
Ontario doesn't have it,
No.
but it's
Well,
super awesome.
I like
But
that.
we get
Yeah.
people wanting us to certify their dogs so
Yeah.
that the dog is in their eyes qualified.
Right.
And all they're interested in is having the certification, not how they get there, whether the dog is appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those people aren't interested in making sure their dog's the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
They just want the all access pass.
Yeah.
But you occasionally will get somebody call up and say, hey, I just couldn't wait 4 years for a dog. We feel we need it now.
Mm-hmm.
We have this dog. This is what we're doing. Are we on the right track? They want to do it right. They want to represent the service dog community
Mm-hmm.
appropriately. And I'm not opposed to helping those people be successful, because if they get it right,
Mm-hmm.
do it right, and their dogs represent is
Mm-hmm.
good or better than our dogs, who am I to say you can't do that?
Okay.
It's just too bad Ontario doesn't have a mechanism
Mm-hmm.
for honoring the good work that they've done and qualifying them officially,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because here in Ontario, the loophole is frustrating, to be
Yes.
politically correct,
Yes.
because under the Accessibility Act,
Mm-hmm.
all you need is a doctor's note,
Yeah.
right? They don't care about our paperwork. That's redundant.
Mm-hmm.
Our clients have to carry a doctor's note with them in Ontario because that's all that matters.
Yeah.
They carry our paperwork as well, but the stuff that really matters is the doctor's note.
Yeah.
But try to apply for ODSP and get the service and guide dog allowance for your dog if you don't come from an accredited school.
Oh, really?
Yes, under
Oh.
ODSP, if you want to qualify for, I think it's like $75, $80 a month. I forget what the stipend is
And
these
what
days.
does ODSP
Under
stand for?
Ontario Disability Support Program.
Okay.
So people that are on medical supports,
Okay.
right? So if you're a guide dog user and you're on ODSP, so you're not working, and you're getting support from the government to support your disability.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a guide dog
Mm-hmm.
or service dog from an accredited program, you qualify for monthly money to cover food and veterinary costs.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? But
Mm-hmm.
if your dog doesn't come from an accredited program, you don't qualify.
Oh.
But
That's an
under
interesting
the
difference.
Accessibilities Act in Ontario,
Says
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
They'll take all comers as long as you have a doctor's note.
Oh, man.
So there's a two-tiered system
I see
depending
that.
on what act you're working beside, right? It doesn't align. Where in Alberta, BC, and Halifax, they have a Service Dog Act that addresses all of that.
That's
right?
amazing. Is there somebody still working or a group that's trying to do that in Ontario and the other provinces? Is there a push for that?
Yeah. Well, we all the 9 accredited programs we formed about 15 years ago, the Canadian Association of Guide and Service Dog Providers,
Oh.
CGAD, and yeah. So part of what we do is look at the legislative pieces, but no, we've reached out. Being in Ontario, we've reached out the schools that are in Ontario on numerous fronts.
Mm-hmm.
To try and get something going on that front, and it's just not something politically that there seems to be any interest in.
Really?
Yeah, we had there was a situation a few years ago. I think it was 17.
Mm-hmm.
A young child from our area in KW, Kitchener-Waterloo was denied access with his service dog to
Mm-hmm.
school,
Mm-hmm.
and it went to the Human Rights Tribunal.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, there was a lot of political talk about it, and he didn't win his case.
Really?
No, they didn't rule in favor of the family. They ruled in
Oh.
favor of the school board, which has said that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But the mom in that particular case, in her frustration and others stuff, actually ran and became and is now a local MPP
No way. Oh
with the
my
current
God.
government, which is super awesome, right?
Yeah.
Because she can advocate, but COVID has kind of put the kibosh on any of that. And I think they actually just moved back some of their work on autism. They just took a big step back in the last couple of weeks as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not, on the service dog side of it, there's not a huge political will, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But, we look at the numbers and we know amongst the accredited programs how many teams are out there across Canada
Mm-hmm.
deployed through our programs collectively, and it's less than 5,000.
Mm.
If you go with owner trained dogs and other agencies that are outside of our accredited community, the numbers are so tiny.
Okay.
In relation to the rest of the population, I don't think there's a lot of will to spend the money
Oh man. Okay.
to do it, and we need it desperately.
Yeah.
I co-chaired a committee that was working on a national standard
Mm-hmm.
for service dog teams in Ottawa from 2014 to 2018, with the goal through the Canadian General Standards Board of putting some type of formal standards that could be recognized across all the provinces
Mm-hmm.
in place, hoping that it would help to encourage governments like the Ontario government to take a closer look at it. Because when we're not fielding calls from people wanting us to qualify their owner, like the dogs that they've trained themselves, we're getting calls from businesses
Mm-hmm.
saying, what are my rights?
Oh yeah.
I just had somebody come in with a dog, and when I asked them for paperwork, they got all upset
Yep.
and threatened my staff
Yep.
and went to the newspaper and
Mm-hmm.
now there's this story on the 6 o'clock news,
Yeah.
like, what are my rights, right? And a
Yep.
lot of these businesses they've called their lawyers, but their lawyers don't know either,
Yeah.
right? So they call us
Yeah. Well, I could see
and
that.
say, what do we do? And my answer to them, unfortunately, is in Ontario, there's no recourse.
Yeah. No.
If a dog is behaving well,
Mm-hmm.
is not interfering with your business, your customers, your staff,
Mm-hmm.
and is unobtrusive,
Mm-hmm.
let them go.
Yeah.
If they're barking, threatening, being disruptive, and the handler, I mean, you get stories and there's stuff on social media of people with dogs at the food court at the mall on the table
Oh God.
that are so-called service
Service
dogs,
dogs.
and
Yeah.
and they're sitting at the table in the restaurant, and it's like, no. Those dogs are supposed to be on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, come on. But you say to the business, if the dog is in this day and age, we couldn't say this 15, 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but in this day and age, if the dog is misbehaving, videotape it,
Yeah, that's true.
because that's your only recourse
Mm-hmm.
to show that you were justified in asking them to leave with that dog because it was being disruptive.
Right.
But if it becomes a he said, she said, the businesses usually lose in the court of public opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it can impact their businesses before they have a chance to prove their case.
Right.
If they've got video evidence,
Yeah.
it's cut and dry.
Yeah.
So that is the only thing we can tell them is get it on video.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed to ask for the doctor's note.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if they don't have it, you can ask them to leave.
Right.
But then for businesses, it becomes is it worth the hassle of potentially ending up on the 6 o'clock news?
Exactly. Yeah.
The
That's
flip
exactly
side
what I
of
was
that
saying.
coin is exactly what you talked about in your podcast,
Mhm.
where you can't get a taxi because they refuse to have the dog in the car, even
Right.
if it is a legitimate dog.
Yep.
So there's bad actors on both sides of the equation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with a lack of appropriate legislation
Mm-hmm.
and fines and clarity,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't benefit anybody,
No.
right?
No.
Because the only mechanism for clients who have been wrongfully denied access legitimately,
Mm-hmm.
their only course of action is through the Human Rights
Yeah. And
Tribunal, which is a long, expensive,
yep.
and it takes years to adjudicate,
Of
right?
course. Yep. I know. So you give up. And yeah,
Hmm.
it's exactly the same as what I was saying about that whole taxi thing. It's like, well, it's not like he had a choice. He still had to get home. You know,
Yeah.
no human rights tribunal is going to show up drive him home. He had to find a way, and
No.
so you just deal
No.
just it just goes by. It happened, and nothing happens after that.
Yeah, and we've had some situations where the police have just been called.
Oh yeah,
Have you got a doctor's note? Yeah, here you go. Let him in.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
And then it becomes the client's choice of whether or not they actually want to part with their hard-earned money to give to somebody who treated them that way.
yeah.
And in
Exactly.
other situations, it's a learning opportunity, right?
Mhm.
So, one of our clients was traveling. They picked up their dog last fall and had run into an issue with a hotel along the way
Hmm.
on their journey home.
Mhm.
And they called me and said, "Hey, we're having this issue." I called, talked to the owner,
Mhm.
and said, "These are your rights." "Well, no, it's our hotel. We can make the rules as we want."
Mhm.
"Well, no, here's a copy of the act.
Mhm.
I am more than happy to have a Zoom call with your staff to educate them on what's a service dog, what it looks like. I have a whole PowerPoint presentation to walk you through what you're required and what you're allowed to ask and what you're required to do."
Mhm.
And some people hang up on you, and other people are like, "Oh, really? You'll do that? You'll
Ah.
you'll actually spend 30 minutes at a
Yeah.
staff meeting and Zoom in and educate my team on service dogs?" I did a presentation for the City of Toronto, 400 employees of the
Mhm.
City of Toronto. Um, did a presentation just not about NSD, but service dogs in general,
Mhm.
accessibility and accessibility rights in Ontario. It was we were in oh gosh, I forget where it was, but it had 400 people in the
That's
seats.
amazing.
Yeah,
Wow. Well,
because they
it's
wanted all their staff. This was the staff that works at the CNE and
oh.
all the city managed
Mhm.
events or attractions.
Right.
So they're dealing with guests and general public and stuff, and they wanted them educated on how to deal with the dogs.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So we
Well.
provide that training for the general public as much as we can,
Mhm.
but it would be a whole lot easier if the government would invest some time and stuff in it. And
Yeah.
I think the frustrating thing for Ontario is they're not breaking new ground. The
Yeah.
BC and Alberta have had a Service Dog Act in place for years.
That's
Um,
crazy.
the BC legislation is the strongest in the country. I'd
Wow.
be thrilled if they would just take that and adopt it.
Yeah.
They don't
Well,
need to spend
yeah.
millions of dollars, just
Yeah,
adopt
just do
it.
that.
Change out the BC for ON and we're good
Ontario,
to
your way to
go.
go.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No, and
we're
this
great.
is this is something I found a lot when I was, trying to delve a little deeper into this, and that I found, wow, this is really very murky. It's messy. There's nothing here.
Yeah.
This is not helpful at all. But I'm
Well, you
glad to
want to
hear
know,
there are some provinces that have dealt with this.
yeah. Well, you know what they do in BC?
Mm-mm.
So in BC, if your dog comes from an ADI or International Guide Dog Federation accredited program,
Mm-hmm.
and you have been given the proper paperwork from us,
Mm-hmm.
the programs,
Mm-hmm.
you submit that paperwork and they give you your access card
Oh,
because they know that we've qualified the teams.
that's
If
amazing.
you go out and train your own dog,
Yeah.
the government has seconded
Mm-hmm.
members of the canine unit from the Justice Department in BC.
Mm-hmm.
So these are officers of the provincial police who work with the canine units
Okay.
for police services, so they know dogs inside and out.
Sure.
The service dog providers in BC worked with them and the assessors to teach them what a service dog is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
So train them on how to do a certification assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So if I train my own dog, I call the Justice Department, set up a test
Mm-hmm.
with a third party trainer that's outside of the service dog community.
Mm-hmm.
They put me through the certification test, file the paperwork, and then I get my access card.
That's amazing.
It is.
It's such a,
And there's no conflict of interest,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you legitimately trained your dog and it meets the standards that have been set by the province,
Mm-hmm.
a government agency will test the dog
Perfect.
and qualify you.
Well, there you
And
go.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
No,
Yeah.
that's perfect. There's an
And that's what it
accountability.
should be in my
Yeah.
exactly. And the government handles it all. So it's not putting agencies like ours in a position of having to assess dogs that we didn't train
Yeah.
or don't own.
Yeah.
Because as you rightly pointed out, NSD, we
Mm-hmm.
retain ownership of all our working service dogs, which
Mm-hmm.
is a slightly different situation than if you own your dog.
Yes. That's right.
Um, yeah.
So have you ever had um, things go in a sort of pear-shaped with a team and you've had to actually take the dogs back?
Handful of times.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about people who voluntarily surrendered their dogs
Yep.
because their situations
Mm-hmm.
changed for a number of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in the 25 years we've had, um, it's challenging. You know, sometimes people's situations change, and it's regardless. It's not one program over the other. It's happened in all three of the programs at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, people's situations change. Like I said earlier, autism is an evolution, right?
Yeah.
And the 5-year-old who is struggling with safety issues hits puberty, and some of the kids have a really tough time,
Mm-hmm.
and they become unsafe for them to themselves, to everybody around them, and sometimes the dog. So we've
Oh,
had
that's,
situations where the families have said, you know, it's not safe for us to be here, it's not safe for the dog to be here, can you
mm-hmm.
come and get your dog?
Oh, okay.
And other times we've had to have a conversation and say, this isn't safe for anybody.
Yeah.
You know, we need to work through this and make sure the dog is safe. And the dog has come back. And in some of those situations, when they get through that time, they've come back and said, can we get a companion dog from you?
Oh,
And yeah, so we go out and assess. And if they're in a different space
yeah.
and things have settled, then we don't close the door, because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, everybody's in crisis in those situations,
Yeah.
right? Nobody wants that to be happening to their child or to their situation.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, on the mental health side of it, you have situations where people cycle through their mental health, right?
Yeah.
And it's not always safe for the dogs to be there if they're not, if the client's not able to meet their daily needs safely, right?
Right.
And reliably.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh.
And so what we do is, you know, sometimes the dogs have come back and then been redeployed out to the family when the situation, whatever it has, is resolved.
Mm-hmm.
Other times they come back and get redeployed, and other times they just get retired
Hmm.
and adopted. It doesn't happen often, though. I can count on one hand.
Really? Wow.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing. Gosh, I've learned so much today. Do
Yeah.
you think that, like, what barriers do you think that are sort of out there that you've had to overcome or are still overcoming? I know we've talked about the legislation stuff, but is there anything else that service dog organizations are sort of trying to overcome, or any of the ones that you felt that you really made significant strides with in the past?
Oh, yeah. Barriers. I mean, right now, I think I mean, as an agency and a charity, obviously, our barriers to growth and being able to get more qualified dogs out the door is always our funding model, right? And
Mm,
more money means more staff, more dogs, more dogs out the door.
mm-hmm.
But those are, you know, those are not specific to our industry. Those are all charities and
Yeah.
organizations that are trying to do this kind of work. But I think the biggest thing that we as an agency across all agencies deal with is the mixed messaging and lack of understanding of the difference between a service dog, a pet dog, an emotional support dog. And because that clarity is not just, or that lack of clarity is not just in Ontario, it's worldwide.
Yeah.
Whenever we get together for Assistance Dogs International conferences,
Mm-hmm.
communications is a huge topic. Like, how do we get our message out that this is a service dog?
Right.
It's really hard. I mean, even within within Assistance Dogs International. It's called Assistance Dogs International because by definition, especially in Europe, the umbrella term is assistance dog, and under that falls guide dogs, service dogs, autism dogs, hearing dogs, seizure dogs. Service dogs used to be, by definition, dogs that work with people with physical disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
But it morphed into a whole bunch of stuff. But within the international community, assistance dogs is used the same way we use service dogs here.
Mm-hmm.
So from an international perspective, even the language within our own industry that we've agreed upon is tough because, so Assistance Dogs International
Mm-hmm.
has a definition for an assistance dog, which is all of the different types of dogs that mitigate disabilities,
Mm-hmm.
with service dogs being a separate category all on its own.
Okay.
But here in Canada, when we were working on the standards up in Ottawa, we defined the umbrella term as service dog, and it didn't align with Assistance Dogs International,
Oh.
and we didn't make it align because all the legislation in this country calls them Service Dog Act,
Right.
not Assistance Dogs Act,
Yeah.
Service Dog Act.
Yeah.
Every reference in law in this country calls them a service dog,
Wow.
which does not match the definition in the international
Right.
community.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So we can't even get consensus on that, right?
Yeah,
So it's not surprising that there's so much confusion out there. But I think, where things started to really spiral and make it difficult for everybody was the internet, the ability to purchase fake equipment online, right up to very, very real looking access cards that aren't worth the paper they're printed on, and people paid, $50 or $100 for them. And it looks very official. Some of them are fraudulent, and they actually are copyright because they've grabbed ADI logos and other agency logos to make them look even more official, and they're not.
Yeah.
And there's, they've knocked down some of the stuff for being fraudulent,
Mm-hmm.
but the minute you take something down off the internet, something else pops up, right?
Course.
So there's not a lot you can do, but that definitely hasn't helped. That and the lack of, like I said, the lack of legislative clarity.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
I think that's the biggest challenge, is people interchangeably using service dog, emotional support dog, therapy dog, thinking it all is the same thing. And it's all very, very different.
It's funny, I found
right? Even
I actually found that the therapy dogs were more understood, that they were they're the guys that, wag their tails into the hospitals and stuff. But as soon as you start putting the emotional support thing in there, the dogs in there, wow, that's when things got very murky. It was funny how that was, therapy dogs seem to be a little bit more understood, that, they're just people volunteering to bring a nice, happy dog in to make people happy, as opposed
Val,
to
I'm sorry to burst your bubble.
Oh, no.
But I can make that cloudy for you, too, if you've got 5 minutes.
You're kidding. No.
Well, I mean, National Service Dogs has our Canine Assisted Interventions program.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So under the therapy dog, for therapy dogs, you have all those great volunteers who go through St. John's Ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
I forget the other agency, that you mentioned in your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That they provide a really tried, tested, and true mechanism for screening people with their pet dogs to go out into the community and volunteer in very meaningful ways.
Yeah.
But then there's canine assisted intervention.
Yeah.
And our facility dogs, some of whom are classified also as therapy dogs because they're working in a physical therapy or mental health field, they're matched with treatment. The difference is they're matched with treatment professionals.
Okay.
And are used in targeted exercises.
Okay.
To assist clients. Right. So it's not just me going in with my golden retriever to the hospital to make a bunch of kids that are sick happy.
Right.
It's me, the social worker, or me, the police officer who needs to pull an interview out of a 5-year-old who's been injured or traumatized in ways we don't want to talk about.
Yes.
But so the dog is being managed by a professional with a goal in mind, and the training that is put on the dog. So again, our facility dogs that are working with law enforcement and the criminal justice system. And we have dogs with social workers working in school boards as part of their crisis management team and crisis response teams.
That's amazing.
But the difference is that person on the end of the leash is trained in traumatic response.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they can utilize the dog's visits and nudges and deep pressure training to elicit a certain response that gets their client to an end result.
Right.
It's not just random. So there is a next level to that whole therapy dog piece, which is it's one of our fastest growing areas. After just to give you some context, like we all, after 9/11, we saw all those dogs in New York that were there. Therapy dog teams were deployed into New York to help first responders and the community at large, right? Post-trauma. A couple of years ago, we got a phone call actually from a sister program, an ADI member program in the States that had been asked by the Justice Department down there to respond after the Las Vegas shooting to that mass casualty event.
Yeah.
And they've shown that if you can put supports in place within 36 hours of a traumatic incident, you can reduce the likelihood of the person who is involved in that trauma of developing long-term post-traumatic stress.
Whoa.
So, but they didn't reach out to the therapy dog programs like they did at 9/11. They've shifted away from that in mass critical events like that, because what they were finding was, although the dogs were qualified and the people were good with the dogs and the dogs were safe, the handlers were suffering from vicarious trauma because they weren't trained in traumatic response.
Oh my.
They didn't always understand when the dogs were overwhelmed and needed to be pulled out of the situation because they weren't coping.
Right.
And so when Vegas happened, they reached out to ADI member programs that had facility dog programs specifically in the trauma field with handlers that were trained in traumatic response, because they wanted to make sure that the people that were on the ends of the leash were not injuring themselves, and that the dogs had been screened for being able to handle people, being around people that were at that level of crisis.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they absorb it to a certain degree, right? And not all dogs are resilient enough to take that on over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And be able to shake it off.
Yeah, exactly.
And if their handlers aren't tuned into their stress behaviors, the dogs can be pushed to the breaking point as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we almost need, like as you said, a two-tiered thing. We almost need this, again, to be more specific. We've got the happy dogs that go to the hospitals, but then we've got these other ones that are specific facility, almost, if we could use those words to even separate them, facility trained
Well, what
dogs,
we've done with our facility dogs is one of our local hospitals is getting one of our facility dogs. They're on the list. And that dog will not only get deployed for the happy stuff, in some of the wards, but the dog is part of their peer support team for mental health for their frontline workers, right? We happened to be in there for another reason after a critical incident in the ER, and they came upstairs and said, "Hey, can you come down to the ER? We've got a situation, and we really think the dogs can help our staff."
Wow.
Post trauma.
Yeah.
And the dog came in and it just changed everything. And so we've had 2 hospitals reach out wanting dogs for their peer support and their mental health team so they can keep their staff healthy and reduce the risk of stress and post-traumatic stress.
Gosh, this is amazing, It's amazing how this is just, really flourishing out there now and seeing this benefit. It's incredible. It really is,
It is. Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much that the dogs can do. And I mean, with COVID, it's been all of our handlers, even our volunteer puppy raisers are just, we're so glad we've had the dogs, they've helped our mental health, give you an excuse to get out. And my guys are getting restless in the background. I apologize. The sun's starting to go down. They're usually on the trail with me by now, getting a quick run in before it gets dark.
We'll get them out there then.
But
wow. I can't tell you how much I have, learned, and I know we've met each other a couple times, and we've never had an opportunity to really talk about everything in depth, but this has been something that I've wanted to do for some time, and really bring light to this. And I think that having you help everybody to understand what it's like from an organization's point of view, and we've just learned all of the facets are incredible, absolutely amazing, and happy 25th anniversary. My goodness.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
I feel old.
I know. It's always
I was a young gun of age 30 when we started this.
Where does this time go?
Oh my gosh.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Danny. I really so appreciate you taking this time, and I would love to talk to you again, because we've got so many things we can always talk about. And
well, if you're looking somewhere down the road, I would love the opportunity to talk about what our facility dogs and our canine assisted intervention dogs are doing, because we've got dogs deployed, like I said, with police services, victim services, child witness. So we have dogs that go and sit in the witness box at court.
Yeah, I heard about it. I read that. Yep.
Yeah, and those dogs usually have a dual role, because they do peer support for staff as well, right?
Amazing.
To help the staff members decompress after a traumatic day of listening to traumatic stories. So that is a new and emerging field, and it's pretty cool. So we'll have to look and see, what's coming down in terms of just within the industry, what's going on, if there's anything. Like I said, autism awareness is in April, but we usually do a lot of stuff on the facility dogs in the fall around Remembrance Day, and there's lots of focus on veterans and first responders and stuff. Sure. So,
well, let's definitely touch base and actually go through that part of things as well. So again, I just want to thank you so much, and let you get to getting your pups out onto the trail, and appreciate all of your time.
Thank you so much, and thank you for, like I said at the lead-in, so very grateful for you shining a light on all this, giving people really good information, and all you do to support the service dog community, because I know through your business you do a great job with that as well.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. We'll talk to you about all things podcasts later. Yeah, take care. All right.
Wow, I just knew Danielle Forbes, Executive Director and co-founder of National Service Dogs, would be a wealth of knowledge to help us understand the world of service, or as often called, assistance dogs. How she and her fellow co-founders created such an amazing organization as National Service Dogs was really fascinating. You can't help but admire people who break ground and find solutions and keep working hard to accomplish something they know can transform lives. One of the things I really took away from our chat was that the abilities of dogs is almost endless. Who would have thought that an autistic child and their family would benefit so greatly from the presence of a dog specially trained? Who would have thought that dogs would be able to reduce the impact of PTSD for individuals in tragic situations? The organizations that spend hundreds of hours managing breeding, puppy raising, training, placement, fundraising, and it goes on, truly are heroes. The combination of these amazing people, their organizations, and the canines are truly astounding. So for this reason, I think we can all help try to make legislation be put in place that is clear and succinct with regards to the roles and access of service dogs. Reputable organizations will welcome it, and those that are scamming will run for the hills, as they should. The next time a candidate comes by my place during an election, I am absolutely going to ask their opinion on this topic and put forth that if you want me to seriously consider you, I want some action on this. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this series on service dogs and assistance animals, and I really hope questions were answered and knowledge was gained because, as I say, Knowing is caring.
Thank you for listening to Val Talks Pets. Please remember to follow or subscribe to ensure that you never miss an episode. To really help the show, please stop by iTunes and rate and review each episode that you find interesting and helpful. And don't forget that you can also email me at val@valtalkspets.com with topics you would like me to address or with any questions you may have. Also, check out my website at valtalkspets.com and let me know what you think and what you would like to see. Thanks for caring!